Hello, welcome to More Than Sunday, the podcast that aims to help you on your journey of discipleship, not just on Sundays, but on every other day of the week as well. You're listening to episode 10 with me, Eve Powers, and Hannah Malcolm. Double figures, Hannah.
I know, 10 podcasts in. We're so grateful to have the chance to share these discussions with everyone. We really hope you are still finding More Than Sunday an enriching experience.
As ever, we welcome your feedback and responses to what we discussed during these podcasts. You can email us at morethansunday@manchester.anglican.org or tweet using the hashtag MoreThanSunday or join our Facebook discipleship group and start a discussion of your own. Our theme this month is witness. What role does being a witness play in our discipleship? I suspect we're going to discover it's rather a big one.
Yes, witnessing to the work of God in our lives is a vital part of any discipleship journey, but it can be really hard to do well.
So here to discuss witness with us is Jamie Mackenzie, our Diocesan Local Ministry Officer. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, morning.
And can you tell us, first and foremost, what your job at the diocese entails?
That's a very good question. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know that. And my job is really working with our lay people in the diocese, making sure they're trained and equipped and getting excited about their faith, so that we can move forward in our churches and keep them growing and keep them vibrant.
What does discipleship mean to you?
I feel I've arrived. As a follower of the podcast, that is the question.
Welcome.
I've been preparing for it and I can't get it quite right, but I've been thinking about it. And for me, discipleship is something to do with the invitation to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And what that means as you grow and learn and follow him. And it's something that's real, it's something that's vibrant, it's something that continues from the moment we receive that invitation till the moment we breathe our last.
Lovely, thank you.
Deep, profound.
Oh, good start.
So if we're thinking about witness then, what is it that you think we're witnessing to as a disciple? So what's the thing we're inviting people to take a look at that we say that we've seen and want to share?
That's a really good question. I think the temptation is that we feel we have to be a witness to the right answers to the deep questions and to defend Christianity. But I think what we're really called to witness to is to a God who absolutely loves this world and loves people and wants to interact. And our witness is about giving people an opportunity to see that and to engage in that, and therefore to view their lives and how they view the world and their relationships completely differently.
What do you think that that witnessing looks like? Like if we for people listening and for us actually as we think about it, if you're imagining a scenario where someone's doing some witnessing, what comes to mind? Because I'm sure for people listening, there's all kinds of different things that might come to mind for them. Some of it might be really positive, some of it might be quite negative. So what images come to mind for you when you think about what witnessing to someone means?
Yeah, I think it's changed over the years. I think originally when I thought about witness, it was someone maybe standing on a soapbox or wearing one of those boards and...
The end is nigh.
The end is nigh, yeah. And giving it to people whether they like it or not, and sort of shouting at people and kind of ramming it down people's throats. But I think over the years what I've come to see it as is it's just the way you live where you are. So witness can be a conversation at the school gates, it can be a conversation whilst you're waiting in a queue at the supermarket, it can be speaking to someone in the doctor's surgery. So for me, I think it's kind of changed from something that's kind of rehearsed and something that involves particular language to something that is just more relational and more natural.
That's interesting. I think if you're thinking about it from a secular sense, the word witness is to observe and to watch something from a distance, and obviously what you're talking about is to live out. So obviously witness means something different in our context. For me, I still think I'm very much learning about a lot of the language around discipleship, can you sort of explain how, or either of you, how do you get from observing something and witnessing something in that sense to living it out, acting it out?
I guess when I think of the word witness, what I'm the relationship I'm drawing between that and then what it means for my own faith is that I'm saying that the way I live my life is a response to witnessing what God has done for me. And so I act as a witness. You can imagine then, if you're thinking about someone that comes into court who's a witness in a case, they come as a witness to something they've seen, and they are sharing their experience of what they've seen. And so then what I share with people about my faith, the way that I live my life as part of that, is witnessing to what I'm claiming that I know about God, what I've seen of God, in my own life, and then also what I read about Jesus in the scriptures. Like we might think about the earliest disciples as being the direct witnesses to Jesus, the women at the tomb being the first witnesses to Jesus being resurrected, and then they go out and share their faith. So they're responding to something that they've seen, that they've experienced. And I guess we might think about that as being the same for us today. And I wonder, Jamie, you mentioned that your understanding of what witness means has changed over time. Is that something that's happened as your journey of faith has moved forward? We're talking a lot about what it means to share our faith. I wonder if you'd be willing to share a little bit about how that faith journey has changed for you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, when I think back to when I first came to church, we weren't from a church family. So I came to church as a teenager, and the only reason I came to church was because there was girls in the youth group. So some call that honey trap evangelism, a special kind of witness. So I came with no understanding of the language, of the background, and the witness to me at that time was the way the leaders and the people at the church treated me, because I was a pain. I was really naughty and I caused them lots of problems. But they stuck with me and they invested in me, and a couple of the male leaders invested in a group of us as young men, and they'd take us out hiking and they'd take us out and playing football with us. And I just kind of reached a point when I was in a particular service and I was watching all these Christians kind of worshipping, and I just kind of thought, I don't know what it is that they've got, but I don't have that. Whatever it is, I want it. So I stayed behind with my youth leader after one of the services, and I just kind of said, you have something, and I see it in you. I don't quite know what it is, but the way you live, your witness of that is attractive to me. He said a little prayer with me, and that was kind of my journey into the church. So it was interesting that it wasn't through a particularly targeted witness or a program. It was a relationary thing. But when I became a Christian, I was very excited about it, and I was very zealous, and I became a bit like a car salesman, I think, to all my friends, which you would do because I wanted them to have that experience. But looking back, I was so zealous. I think I was a bit too black and white in the way I was saying it to people, but it's because I was excited. But it took me a number of years to realise actually that the most important thing is that people watch you over time, and you can say whatever you want, but the big thing is the witness of your whole life, how you live, what happens when you mess up, how you come back from that. And actually I began to realise over time that that's what made the real impact on people, was that kind of long-term investment and them seeing not just what you said, but how you back that up with your lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess if we go back to it's making me think, if we go back to our little court case analogy, that you've got your witness who's in the stand, and that's great, and they're going to give their account. But then what happens next is that their background is dug out, and people pull out all the things. Oh, why should we believe this person? Are they a credible witness? Were they drunk? Were they doing X, Y, and Z? Which means we can't believe their story. And I guess there's a similar sense that there is for us as Christians, that actually it's all very well saying stuff that we know is true, but if our lives aren't credible to people, then that witness won't be believed. So that's, I think a lot of us experience that over our faith journeys, that you have to, I don't know, I know for myself that you learn from like your failed attempts at witnessing to people, and usually it's because you've done something stupid, or you haven't honoured the relationship above all, or you haven't been credible to them, and I think that's something that's really familiar for people in their discipleship journey, in the experience of witnessing. I wonder whether there's an awful lot of fear that people feel about sharing their faith with people because they think, oh, I'm not really a credible witness, am I? Because, they won't take me seriously. Or, oh, I don't know the right answers and so I can't share my faith. Or what if people just laugh at me? Or what if I'm being rude or offensive? And I wonder if you have any thoughts about that. Are there ways that you've worked through some of those fears yourself, Jamie? Or maybe you still just have all of them? And that would be helpful to hear too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that confidence thing is such a big thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's because we spin it wrong. I think if people feel under pressure to say the right thing, then they're going to worry about saying the wrong thing and they're going to worry what people say. But that, I mean, a really, really helpful thing to me, I think, is seeing it in the sense of storytelling. Your story is so unique to you and your understanding of God, and that includes all the ups and downs as well, and the good bits and the bad bits. And if someone asks you something, rather than feeling the pressure of some rehearsed line or remembering how to draw a bridge to life on a napkin so you can lead someone to faith at every opportunity, I think there's something so real and organic about sharing your story and your understanding of that. And I think one other thing as well is we use the word confidence a lot, but I really think that I keep hearing this change of word. I've heard it in a few places. I'm not sure where it's from, but it's about being courageous rather than confident. Because some of us will never feel confident, 100% confident to talk about our faith and learning to do that, because it can be quite a private thing and it can be something that, being British and particularly being Anglican, we don't always talk about. But actually, if we get courageous, it's about feeling that fear and kind of giving it a go anyway. But I think we need to practice. I think some of us sit next to people in our churches and have done for years and years, and we don't know each other's stories actually, or real stories. And I think, as Christians, we need to get used to telling our stories to each other and sharing that, so that when other people ask, rather than it being a rehearsed line that comes out, like it being a bit robotic, that we can learn how to tell our stories of, I think every single one of us in a couple of minutes should be able to explain, when we first discovered God and what that means to us in our lives. It's two very simple things, and to practice that with each other, so that when people ask, we can, like the Bible verse says, give an account of the faith that is within us.
Right. So it's like being this credible witness in the stand then isn't like being a super Christian. It's not like being uber competent, but it's about having integrity. You're making me think of where Paul talks about having our confidence in Christ, and that grace is sufficient for our weaknesses, and that we actually boast in our weaknesses, so that Christ looks even better. And I guess we can sometimes get mixed up where we think about trying to be credible or having lives that point to Jesus, that we think that means we have to be super Christians, rather than being honest and having that integrity that people can recognise. And I think that's really helpful about sharing stories actually in our church communities first, because that can just be an encouragement for each other as well. I can't think the last time I shared my faith story with someone sitting next to me in church. I think that's a really helpful challenge.
If you can't say it to somebody sat next to you in church, who can you say it to, really?
Right, yeah.
It's so much more frightening to go and talk to somebody who doesn't go to church or who has no interest in becoming a Christian or faith in general. Yeah. You'd think it'd be easier to talk to somebody sitting next to you, but maybe that's half the battle, is talking at all, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that thing as well about it. Witness isn't about being perfect. This world doesn't need holier-than-thou Christians lording it over people. What this world needs is to see people that stumble and fall and mess up and struggle like everybody else, but have this relationship with a God that somehow helps them to deal with that and keep stumbling forwards. And that's the witnesses. I'm just the same as you, but I've met this amazing God, and that just gives me this extra help, this extra support. And I think that is far more attractive to people than hearing this perfect gospel spoken by a seeming perfect person that they feel, I could never be like that because I'm too broken, or I've got this baggage, or I've got this history. And I think it's far more real for people when they see another real person living just like them, but there's something about them that's just that bit different, and that is that relationship with God, that is that faith, that being part of a Christian community. And I think that's, we need to drop the baggage of trying to be perfect and trying to get our words right and feeling that we have to be something that we're not, because it's vulnerability and authenticity that attracted me to faith, because no one was, telling me certain things. They were just loving with me and living with me and journeying with me, and it was me that actually asked them. And I think if you live your life in such a way that people ask you the question, then that's far easier to respond to in terms of witness, isn't it? If someone's asking you the questions, that's far easier than you feeling you've got to manufacture a scenario or a situation to do a kind of, heavy kind of get someone in the headlock and not let them go until they've relinquished their life and given their lives to Jesus,
Is there such a thing as witnessing to yourself? It took me a long time to admit to myself that I liked going to church, and I went to church for more of a reason than just because, I just, go to church because I like singing and it's nothing more than that. It took me ages, and I think I'm still kind of getting there, to be honest. But in the last couple of years, I mean, obviously I work for the diocese, so I understand the value of it in the practical sense, but it took me forever to get there, to admit to myself that I was going for a reason and that there was something more to it than just it's a good place to learn to sing. Do you think that's a struggle for other people, or am I alone in this?
Reluctant Christian.
I am. Yeah. Well, I am not now, but I was.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think it's not just when you're coming to faith that the witnessing to yourself is important, but actually part of what we're witnessing to. If we're saying we're witnessing to what God has done in our lives, I think one of the things that's very easy to do because of human nature is that we remember the bad stuff, we remember the struggles, and it's very, very quick. We're very, very quick to forget the good things that God has done for us. We're very, very quick to forget to say thank you, to be grateful, to remind ourselves of the good news that we supposedly want to share with other people, but that we don't actually think about as particularly good a lot of the time. So I absolutely think that witnessing to yourself it's like a real discipline to remind yourself of what you say you believe about who God is and what God has done for you. I was wondering, Jamie, the other thing that was coming to mind when you were talking was the problem that I think we often get as well, that thinking witness is something for the professional Christians, the ones that are paid to do it, and they're going to be much better at it, so we should leave it up to them. And you work particularly looking in lay ministry and equipping people and empowering people who are lay members of churches.
Do you think we need a buzzword check there?
Yeah.
As in lay?
Yeah. So firstly, Jamie, can you tell us what does it mean to be lay? And then tell us a little bit more about how you do that work.
Yeah, I mean, we use the word laity quite a bit in the Anglican Church, don't we? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it comes from the Greek word laos, which just means the whole people of God. It just means it means all of us to a certain extent. So when I work with lay people, I'm working with everybody.
Yeah.
Those who are not necessarily ordained, but those who attend and those who come to church. Yeah, I think that some people definitely have a kind of gift for witness or evangelism, or the E word as we call it, because it's scary. And some people, we think back to the Billy Graham missions and those great movements and great speakers and people coming to faith. And there are people that definitely have that gift and that skill and ability. But I think what we're coming to understand and realise as a church is, we can have people that are really good and speak, but they're not the people at the school gate. They're not the people, living alongside people in communities or visiting an elderly person or bumping into someone at the post office. And actually, that's where real witness happens, in the everyday normal stuff of life. So we can professionalise it, and we can get worked up about getting it right, and I can't do that. But actually, if you break it down to much more normal stuff, those everyday interactions, how you love people, how you respond to people, how you listen to people, then actually it becomes something that everybody can do, and it becomes something that can actually go from being something scary to actually being really quite exciting, because it's not just about you forcing things, it's about you listening to how you can respond to people, or listening to the work that God's already doing that you can join in with and sprinkle salt on it and be light in that situation. So But I think it's really important to help people understand that we're not calling you as a witness to be a professional evangelist, who can jump up in front of hundreds of people and start selling the gospel. We're calling you and helping you to live faithfully, because only you are surrounded by the people you're surrounded by. Only you live where you live. And your vicar, however amazing they might be at witnessing and evangelism, they're not in your community, in your family, in the places where you go. So there's something about helping people see where you've been planted is where God wants you, and helping people to bloom in that environment is so important. And it's exciting. It really is exciting when you start to change that into you're already doing it. You just do it with a bit more awareness, do it with a bit more light, do it with a bit more salt. But we need to encourage people more, from the pulpits, things like this and the podcasts, to encourage people to do that.
So your courses that you offer, I know you're having a fallow year this year, but could you just tell us a little bit about what kind of, if people are interested in just don't know where to start, in being more of a witness, or sort of taking maybe a step forward in their Christian life or in their role in their church, what can they do if they come on one of your courses?
Foundations for Ministry is our kind of entry-level course, and that course is for anyone that is thinking about some sense of leadership or some sense of calling to ministry. And that definitely doesn't just mean ordained ministry. That's anyone that feels a sense of, I've got gifts, I've got a sense of that, I've got an inkling of that, but I don't quite know how to live that out. I don't quite know where that fits. And that course is a wonderful course that just gives people space to unpack that. Well, I was loving what you were saying earlier about, in the sense of you almost have to convert yourself first. Yeah, it has to begin with you, because if you yourself have not been converted or convinced of this amazing God that loves you and cares for you, it's going to be really difficult for you to witness and tell other people about that. So the Foundations course really allows you that time for you to go on that journey, for you to convince yourself to get away from being Christians Anonymous. But it has to start with us, and we need space to do that, and we need space for people to journey and to ask difficult questions and to ask all the questions that seem silly. So the course really, as much as I'd like to think the way that it's structured and the content that I spend hours poring over is the most amazing stuff ever written, actually what always comes out of it is people journeying together, sharing their stories, their ups and downs, getting to know each other, and the course really, the topics just become discussion points. But really it's about, as we said before, that building that sense of confidence or courage, that confidence in God, that courage in self to give it a go. And it really just provides a kind of environment that Jesus did with his disciples. Jesus didn't do a specialist course with a specialist degree at the end of it. He lived life with a group of people very intensively, and they talked about what they experienced, and they gave it a go, and they completely messed up royally, and then they came back and they discussed why. And so hopefully the course, the Foundations course, certainly is providing an environment where people can just come and be real and honest and work it through. And towards the end of the course, hopefully have a little bit more understanding of who they are, where they're planted, and how they're called to minister. About a quarter of people do go on to some kind of ordained or official ministry, but the vast majority of people leave the course realising, actually I am a minister, I am ministering and I am witnessing, but they do it with new eyes. And that's really exciting. I think that the majority of people don't go on to anything else, but they re-see what they have been doing as something completely different.
You'll be able to find the link to the Foundations for Ministry course in your email that we send out each month. Obviously, mine and your roles cross over a little bit at the diocese, Jamie. My role is to do social media, and I spend a lot of time broadcasting the messages of the diocese out there. Now, when we first met, you weren't all that keen on social media, and we had a good sort of battle of wills about, I think it's important that people get online and talk about their faith. You weren't convinced. Can you tell us why that is and what you think now?
Yeah, no, you're right. Part of the course that we look at is social media as part of the world that we live in. And as part of being witnesses, as part of being real Christians, we have to understand the context in which we live. And social media, whether we like it or not, is a huge part of that. And for a lot of people, that is part of their world. So there was sections on the course that delved into that. But as you saw when I showed them to you, they were a little more on the negative side. I think I'd really seen social media as some kind of form of social evil, really, which may sound a bit heavy, but I'd had a lot of experience when I was a chaplain working in a college that so many of our issues between students were to do with social media and falling out and people putting stuff on, and we were spending so much time we couldn't police it. That was the thing. So how do you work with it? So some of the materials I looked at and we discussed with people tended to go towards the side that social media is a bit of a problem. Social media is something we need to get people off, and really I hadn't really had a kind of redemptive experience or positive experience of it, which was why when you started I kind of said, can you have a look at these materials? And I'm aware they probably need a different perspective.
They were quite frightening, and I'm not going to lie. Mainly because of the imagery that Jamie used, some very scary pictures. And you're not wrong. But I genuinely think that social media is a neutral tool. It's like anything. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. It's about the person that wields it that's important. And as I'm sure a lot of people are aware, the world of social media can be an incredibly negative place and full of all sorts of unpleasant behaviour and language and fake news and all sorts of things. However, if we as Christians aren't on there witnessing, being Christ online effectively, if we're not doing that, then I think we're failing our communities and we're failing our friends and families as well, because we are not there trying to put that positive message out into the world. Because let's face it, I think, something like 80% of the population have some sort of social media in their hand, in their phone at all times. So if we're not talking to them on there, which is where they now get most of their news from and do most of their communicating, then they're not seeing us and they're not hearing our messages and not hearing the good news. So as scary as a world as it is for us to wade into, and I do agree with you, it can be a really negative place. I think it's part of the challenge of being a Christian is that we have to go into those dark and difficult places, and social media, unfortunately, is one of them. And that's where I spend my days and years.
Yeah, and it was so good hearing that different perspective, and I don't think I understood just what an important part it plays in people's lives, and therefore, in terms of witness, in terms of reaching people, it really is a platform in which you can engage with people. And it was really helpful for me to understand more about the different ways you can do that and the opportunities for doing that. And for me to begin to see, it is an area like any other that can have pros and cons, but God is this amazing God that asks us to redeem things and to bring salt and light to things. And I think social media is definitely, I'm a convert in that sense now. You won me round in that sense, and I've begun to use it a lot more in the work and bring a different perspective to it, and the courses that you've been running. But it is about demystifying it, trying a few things, learning how to use them. I think that's it. When you don't know how to use it, it's a bit scary. But I guess if Christians had said when the printing press came out, this isn't a good thing, I don't think we're not going to be producing Christian materials on this or printing Bibles. And people did at the time. I remember I studied this in history, and people thought, this is a terrible thing. People are going to people who do beautiful handwritten books are going to lose their jobs, and there's always a conflict when new technologies come in. But it is an opportunity to be an evangelist, I think. I know some people who blog about their ordination journeys. We have a blog at the diocese of some of our ordinands write about the ups and downs of that experience. So you get some realistic points of view as well. I think that's really important because people are now being a lot more open online, and then sometimes now more willing to share things with strangers than they would with people they know. And this goes back to what we were saying about telling somebody in church or that you sit next to your story. And actually, some people are now pouring their hearts and souls out online. And this is an opportunity for us to look after them and care for them in that space where they feel comfortable being open and honest and telling the truth, when they might not be able to actually say it to your face. So that's an opportunity, I think.
Which kind of brings us to our actions.
Oh, yes. Hannah, what are you suggesting for people this month?
So, because we've been thinking a little bit about those layers of challenge that we can maybe experience when we're thinking about sharing our story and what it means to work out for ourselves what our story is, we are going to have a layered set of challenges that you might want to take on. So the first one would be to think through what your story of faith is. What are you witnessing to for yourself? Maybe try to write it down to give a bit of an idea of where you can map it from its beginning to now, and spend some time thanking God for what God has done. So maybe that would come under what Eve mentioned earlier, which is basically witnessing to yourself. And then if you feel able, share that story with a Christian, someone that you know and trust, or maybe someone that you don't know so well at church. Try and find an opportunity to share your story of faith with a Christian. And then if you feel able, see if you can find an opportunity to share that story with a non-Christian. Maybe someone who is a friend of yours but doesn't really know much about your faith, because really you're sharing part of yourself with them. It's an opportunity to deepen your relationship with that person, sharing that part of your life that maybe you haven't felt brave enough to before. And then finally, if it's right for you and if you feel able to, maybe try and share that story on social media. You may even find that easier than sharing it in person with a non-Christian, but it would be a great opportunity to encourage each other as well, to see those stories of faith online. So let us know how you get on with all of those. It'd be brilliant to hear which ones of those challenges you decided to take on this month and where they led you. And, we're all failing upwards with this, so we learn from the things that go wrong, and we'd love to encourage each other with that as well.
Thank you for listening to More Than Sunday. We'll be back next month when our theme will be community.